China's economy is experiencing the sharpest downturn in nearly 40 years. Many home buyers can no longer afford their mortgages, and more people are defaulting on their monthly payments. This trend is growing, but we have noted that the Lehman moment hasn't happened in China. Why is that? In 2008, a wave of defaulted mortgages in the United States triggered a financial tsunami. Yet in China, we haven't seen any large-scale bank failure. It seems to be a good thing on the surface. But if one looks deeper, one will feel sorry for the Chinese people. They have borne the heavy burden of decades of government mistakes and the huge risks the state is facing. And many Chinese have been driven to their breaking point.
My mortgage payment was missed, and my home is seized. I bought it in 2019 with a down payment of 420,000 yuan, or more than $60,000, and then I had to pay $863 a month. Last summer, business was bad, and the cash flow was broken. I found out that the monthly payment from the past 3 years was $30,200 in total, but only $5,800 of the principal was repaid. The rest was all interest. The court was after me. And now, not only is my home seized, but my bank cards are all suspended. Now I'm allowed to take $1 from WeChat account. In the end, I still owe an extra $15,000 in fees. I looked at the list of charges, including penalties, legal fees, and insurance. It's a huge mess. The bank called a few days ago and told me the property would be auctioned off soon. He said the appraisal was $184,000 and then discounted by 20%. I calculated that it was about $144,000. With such a price, not only is my home lost, the down payment is gone as well. It's still not enough to pay off the loan. I still owe the bank $15,000. With $29,000 in direct monthly payments that were already paid and a bunch of legal fees, I'll end up losing at least $100,000.
This woman, who bought a home in China's Guangdong province 4 years ago for about $300,000, is forced to default on her mortgage.
My mortgage payment was missed, and my home was seized by the bank. Last April, I lost my income, which forced me to drop my mortgage. I realized at that time that I had almost $190,000 left to pay. After more than 3 years, I paid back $43,000, of which more than $29,000 was interest. I was sued by the bank 6 months after I defaulted on my payments. My home is gone, and I owe the bank hundreds of thousands of RMB. My loss is up to $130,000.
Chinese people spend a massive amount of money on homes. Most pay about 30% down and take out a loan. According to data released by the Central Bank of China, the current household debt ratio in China is 56.5%, and the mortgage is the main reason for the high debt. With about $20,000 per capita, the average household debt has reached $74,000. For example, in a family of 5, the mortgage is basically on the 2 young people in the family, basically on those who were born after the 1980s and 1990s. They account for 85% of the total number of people in debt. Many young people have high mortgage payments, probably more than $150,000. Right now, in medium and large cities, housing prices are dropping rapidly, placing young people in a nightmare situation.
Sometimes I feel that life is really too hard. I've worked so hard, and I still can't get by. For 7 years of marriage, my husband and I have been diligent and hardworking. But just when there was a little hope for life, everything happened in this 6 months. Nothing is more miserable than us, right? Since we bought the home, the price has been dropping, and the mortgage rate has dropped from 5.78 to 3.9. We moved back to Wuhan from Hangzhou for our children's schooling, and ended up with only 4 weeks of schooling for 1 semester. My mother-in-law was diagnosed with a serious illness and came to Wuhan for treatment for 2 months. Tomorrow she will continue. I managed to find a job, but after 1 month, I was laid off and lost it. Every day is a motto to me right now. So I just want to lie flat all the time, completely lying flat. After graduating from school, I have been drifting out there for so many years. I feel really tired. I want to go back to my hometown in the countryside. But I still have a mortgage of over 140,000 US dollars that's weighing on my mind and making me suffocate. This is the lesson I learned after spending more than 70,000 US dollars. Young people should not be in a hurry to buy a home. Buying a home means you can't even afford to get sick in this life, and rest is the greatest luxury for a homeowner.
你们一个月房贷多少？后悔买房了吗？
How much is your monthly mortgage payment? Are you regretting buying a home? We bought this home in 2021 because we were tired of moving around all these years, and we had some savings on hand. And it was just in time to catch the low point of housing prices. Among the 3 generations of my family and my father's family, no one has ever bought a home in Beijing. We just want to make our children's starting point higher through the efforts of our generations. Although the home is an old one, the surrounding area is relatively convenient and not far from my store. I thought that based on the income of my father and mine at that time, we would have more than enough to repay the mortgage. I didn't expect the revenue to become less and less in these 3 years. Now I am unemployed, and the business of the store is bad. But the monthly mortgage payment of $1,500 US dollars is not a penny less. The pressure of the $1,500 mortgage payment has all gone to my father.
Looking at the data released by the Chinese government, the economy has shown a recovery in the first quarter. Real estate has been the engine and leader of every recovery in the past, as it contributes about a quarter of China's GDP and may have contributed far more than a quarter of the impact on economic fluctuations. However, as a result of several factors combined, China's real estate has not only failed to recover, but even contracted. One of these factors is that most private real estate companies are in actual default or are on the verge of bankruptcy. State-owned real estate companies are becoming the main force of new construction and new property sales. Yet previously, state-owned enterprises only accounted for about 20% of the market share. The property market across China has seen a general plunge in transaction volumes since April 2023, with some places falling by half from a year earlier. For example, in Wuhan, a well-known Chinese city, data released on the government's official website showed that 7,487 new homes were sold in April, a 49% drop compared to the number of sales in March. Chinese media also reported that the number of foreclosures climbed sharply to 606,000 units. Compared to 2021, it's a spike of 35.7%, setting a new record high. The scale of foreclosures has also risen to approximately $200 billion US dollars. Since the lifting of the epidemic restrictions, the foreclosure volume has surged due to accelerated foreclosures by banks. As we previously reported, Chinese industry insiders estimate that the number of foreclosed properties in China could exceed more than 10 million by the end of 2023. Housing is an essential need. Chinese people are doing their best trying to own their own homes, even to the point of emptying 6 pockets, which include the pockets of 2 sets of grandparents and the husband and wife. When young people buy a home at a high price, once they lose their jobs and are unable to make the monthly payments, or when the price of their home falls significantly, much lower than the mortgage, i.e., the home will become a negative asset, many families will be overwhelmed, choosing to abandon their homes and drop the mortgage payments. This means that banks will repossess their homes, but this isn't the end of their nightmares. When an individual takes out a mortgage in China, there is no protection of personal bankruptcy law, nor a contractual limitation on the debt. In other words, the mortgage liability for an individual is unlimited. If the real estate market drops significantly, the homes held by residents will become negative assets. In such cases, unlike the US, residents with homes of negative value can simply stop making payments and hand over their homes to banks, and their debts will thus come to an end. So in the US, not only are down payments low, some of which are 10% or even 0, but there is the protection of personal bankruptcy law. When the individual chooses to go into bankruptcy or stop making mortgage payments after handing over the home to the bank, his or her personal mortgage debt is terminated. The consequence is that the individual will be left with bad credit. But in China, if an individual chooses to default on the mortgage, not only will the bank that lends the loan repossess the home, but the person will continue to pay the outstanding amount until it is fully repaid. The homeowner loses not only the home, but also the down payment and the previous payments, plus are saddled with a mountain of debt that they have to pay.
我撑不住了，我想断供了。
I can't take it anymore. I want to stop making mortgage payments. I have 2 homes in hand and I have to pay off 2 mortgages. The monthly payment for the first home is $720 and the payment for the second home is $1,900, which adds up to over $2,700. I was feeling a lot of pressure and wanted to sell my first home. Then I listed for a long time, but actually couldn't sell it at all. I found out later that the market is particularly bad. Even if you give an 80% or 70% discount, there's still no one who's interested in buying it. Moreover, due to the epidemic, the real estate market is depressed, and developers are selling their homes at a discount, so it's impossible to sell the homes that people have in hand. I'm now at a high risk of being trapped for 30 years of my life. You simply can't sell your homes. There's no liquidity in the market. I can only resign myself to 30 years of slavery. Even if I don't eat or drink or buy anything, I have to pay back the bank this loan. I sometimes think I might as well stop making the payments. But I found that breaking the mortgage isn't as simple as I thought. Now there is a feeling that there is no return arrow. We must go down the road. Suddenly I realize there is no hope in life. I have to work for the bank for 30 years. So where is my happiness? I'm not yet married. I don't even have any children. And I find that all my hope and my life have all been ruined, all by these homes.
In Harbin, thousands of foreclosures are generated every month on average. Isn't it terrifying? It's because nearly 40% of the people in Harbin don't have a stable income and have no security. If you currently have a stable job, but you can't guarantee the stability of monthly payments, and if buying a home isn't essential, then I advise you not to consider buying a home. Don't listen to those so-called big shots talking nonsense, telling you to take out a loan or to increase your leverage and so on. You can borrow the money and buy the property, but have you thought about one thing? Don't you need to pay back this money? This is why there's no subprime mortgage crisis in China, despite such a massive amount of mortgage defaults. The reason why the subprime crisis broke out in the US is that in the years before the financial crisis, the American housing market continued to prosper, interest rates were low, and competition among financial institutions was fierce. Many people with poor credit scores were able to obtain loans, referred to as subprime loans. However, as the housing market cooled and interest rates gradually increased, the pressure on subprime borrowers to repay increased, and many chose to default on their mortgage payments. With the protection of personal bankruptcy laws and personal mortgage contracts, American homeowners won't end up as miserable as Chinese homebuyers because what Americans have is a non-recourse mortgage, in which the bank and the homebuyer share the risk of the mortgage. This is one of the reasons for the outbreak of the subprime mortgage crisis in the United States. China has a recourse mortgage, and a natural person can't file for bankruptcy. Therefore, all the risks of failing to repay the loan lie on the homebuyers, the average citizens, while banks bear little to zero risk. Not only that, after the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, the U.S. government introduced the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act, which suspended foreclosures to provide flexibility to homeowners who may be in distress and to prevent the widespread risk of a bank foreclosure. In other words, the CCP has sided with the real estate companies at all levels of the legislator and regulatory oversight. In order to prevent the real estate bubble from bursting, it has gone out of its way to harm the interests of homebuyers in general. While the U.S. will have a crisis of subprime mortgages, China will only have a personal version of the mortgage crisis. This is why Chinese real estate companies such as Evergrande may continue to crash, but there is no Lehman moment, as some analysts have predicted. The Chinese Communist government has basically unlimited power to direct resources and distribute pain as it sees fit in order to avert a crisis. The mistakes of the CCP's land policy over the decades have created a giant housing bubble. The pain of this bubble's imminent bursting has been transferred to the greatest extent possible to the individual citizen. Many Chinese people have bought additional properties to provide a relatively safe haven for their savings because of the illusion of wealth created by land finance and the lack of security of other financial products and investment channels in China. But now, these people see that their dark moment has arrived.
就发现一个很奇怪的现象，
I found an odd scenario. That is, those relatively wealthy bosses on my WeChat posted a lot of messages about properties to their circle of friends. They seem to be panicking now. Why the panic? One of the reasons is that they have listed their homes on hand on various platforms for more than a year, but haven't been able to sell. They want to cash in, but can't. In fact, I've had a hunch about this for a while because I have some friends who are real estate agents. They have told me that there aren't many transactions in home sales and leasing these days. I have a friend who has been a real estate agent for 8 years, and today he said that he couldn't continue his work. There is really no other way. He plans to change his career. And even in the future, he isn't going to get involved in the industry of home buying and selling. The bosses in my WeChat circle of friends are also in the same situation now. You simply don't know where you can find buyers. If you want to sell your home, it's basically a long shot, and you don't know when you'll be able to get rid of it. A friend contacted me privately and said that their property was initially listed for 1.2 million yuan, or 173,000 US dollars, but the final sale was only 800,000 yuan, or 115,000 US dollars. To be honest, I was shocked upon hearing this figure. I still can't believe that buying a home has made me bankrupt. This is my 4th flat. I'm not showing off or anything. I was proud to own these flats before. My goal was to get rich and prosperous. I bought the homes just waiting for the next upswing to sell them and make some money. But now these homes have become completely a time bomb. Look at the home I live in now. The renovation looks nice. The mortgage is over 1 million yuan, or about 144,000 US dollars. I'm still living in it, but in a few months, I don't know if it'll still be mine. I borrowed nearly 100,000 US dollars for the renovation. Back then, when people saw that I had several properties, they were quick to lend me the money. Now they know I can't afford the mortgage. They have all come to demand money from me. I stayed up all night last night because I lost my job the day before yesterday. I worked in the company for 13 years and it went out of business in 3 months. And there is no compensation for me. It's really adding insult to injury. I am afraid to tell my wife that I only have enough money to repay 2 months of mortgages, and after that, there is nothing left. I still have 2 children to support, and now I don't know where to get the money for food. All the homes in my name are mortgaged, and none of them are paid off. I have almost 863,000 US dollars in total loans with the bank, and I have a monthly mortgage payment of 4,300 US dollars. That's about 50,000 US dollars a year, not counting interest. A few years of interest is almost enough to buy a house. I really can't bear it anymore. In April 2022, I still had nearly 30,000 US dollars on hand, but because of all these mortgages, 3 months after the Chinese New Year, I was unemployed and had no money left. It's not that I didn't think about selling them. When I bought the properties, the market was very hot at the time. That was 2 years before the epidemic started, and the real estate market was very high. I didn't feel like selling my homes at that time. Now the housing price has dropped. What's worse is that no matter how much you reduce the asking price, no one will buy it. Nobody would bother with it at all. I was advised by the bank to sell my home because if I missed my mortgage payment, the bank would auction off my home at a very low price and use it to pay off the bank's loan. And it's not that if the home is auctioned off, you're done with the bank. It only ends when the loan is paid off. The final result is that the home is gone and the loan owed to the bank is still there. I feel that I have been forced into a desperate situation. In the midst of the nation's falling housing prices, there are still some Chinese who see this as an opportunity to start buying homes at super low prices. This man has purchased over a dozen homes, the cheapest of which is only 290 US dollars, because of some problems. Perhaps because there is no mortgage, this man feels like the future is safe. There is a home costing 2,000 yuan, or 290 US dollars. Half of that is the agent's fee, and the other half is the payment for the flat. There are several cities in the country where you can buy an apartment for $1,500 to $4,500 US. I bought one in Shaoxing, Zhejiang Province, one in Tangshan, Hebei Province, 3 apartments in Baoding, and 12 apartments in Hebi, Henan Province. If I don't buy homes, what should I do? I used to open an online store on the Taobao platform. I have to stock a lot of inventories at home. Because I live in Baoding City, I have found that it's not convenient to move goods in and out of there. I bought flats in the city of Hebi, some of which are on the first floor, which I want to use as a warehouse. My classmates said that the housing prices were low, so I went over to check it out. I bought some after viewing it. I've been living there for half a month now. I bought 8 homes for $15,000 US. I just can't live in all of them, so it's good to rent them out. Consider it as an investment. Anyway, it won't lose money as I am trying to make a long-term investment. In reality, on April 25, 2023, the Chinese government announced at the National Conference on Natural Resources and Real Estate Rights Registration that China has fully realized the unified registration of real estate. This means that the era of real estate tax in China is coming. By that time, even those who don't carry mortgages but own multiple properties will become part of the leak, ready to be harvested by the CCP. So the Chinese shouldn't worry about being left out. The CCP always has something for everyone when it comes to cutting leaks.